All right, I want to clear something up from yesterday's video about playoff expansion. That looking back on it now, it was 25 minutes long. It was a lot of rambling. I tend to do that sometimes, but I want to clear something up that um, I either didn't do a good enough job of getting this point across, or maybe I skipped it altogether. Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. That's right, it is me, Uncle Lou, live on LouTube for you. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. As discussed in length in yesterday's video, the Big Ten and the SEC, who control the future of the college football playoff, have decided to go to either a 14 or 16 team playoff starting in 2026. They haven't decided between 14 or 16. And the SEC and the Big Ten are going to get 4 automatic qualifiers each into the playoff every single year. The ACC is going to get 2 automatic qualifiers every single year. The Big 12 is going to get 2 automatic qualifiers every single year. So that's the part I want to discuss now. The part about automatic qualifiers. I tried to make the point yesterday that I think over the last 20 years the SEC has been the best conference in all of college football. I think right now the Big Ten is the best conference in all of college football, and I'm certain that we have no idea who the best conference in college football will be 10 years from now. Things tend to be cyclical. Things tend to change over time. Regardless of all of that, I'm okay with automatic qualifiers. Every sport on the planet just about has some form of automatic qualifier, whether it's winning your conference, winning your division. There is a black and white, clear-cut path for somebody to get to the playoffs. You know, if your team does this, they get in. That's an automatic qualifier, right? If you win your division, you get in. If you win your league, you get in. If you win your conference, you get in. Look at the NFL, right? The NFL's got 2 conferences. Was it 4 divisions in each conference, whatever it is? Every team that wins their division is guaranteed a spot in the playoffs, right? Every single one. So you got 8 divisions. That's 8 teams get in automatically. Then your wild cards come in and all that. Those are not automatic qualifiers. Those are based on your record. But if you win your division, you're in. That's an automatic qualifier. I'm okay with having automatic qualifiers in college football. In other words, if you win the SEC, you're in. If you win the ACC, you're in. Big Ten, whatever, or whatever the criteria is. I am in favor of a clear-cut, black and white path to the playoff for every team. If you do this, you're in. What I am not in favor of is different conferences having different amounts of automatic qualifiers. Yeah, I know that right now the SEC and the Big Ten are probably better than the ACC and the Big 12. I don't understand why that matters. It doesn't matter in anything else. Can you imagine for a second? Let's go back to the NFL, but you can use this analogy with Major League Baseball, the NBA, whatever. Can you imagine the NFL? We just had the Super Bowl. The Eagles beat the Chiefs, okay? The Eagles are in the NFC. The Chiefs are in the AFC. Each conference gets the same number of teams into the playoffs every single year, right? Whatever that number is it 8? They each get it, whatever. They each get the same number in, right? Can you imagine the commissioner of the NFL or the owner or general manager of a couple of, let's say, NFC teams coming out after the Super Bowl and going, you know what? We think that last year the NFC was better than the AFC. So going forward, we're going to give 10 playoff spots to the NFC and only 6 playoff spots to the AFC. People's head would explode. People would look at that and go, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. Even if they agreed that the NFC was better than the AFC. Here, look, every year, some conference is better than another. Every year, in every sport, in all of history. The American League and the National League in baseball. Some years, maybe the American League, and I'm no expert, by the way, on either the NFL or the Major League Baseball. But so maybe this year the American League is clearly better than the National League. Does that mean that in the offseason, Major League Baseball is going to come out and go, you know what? The American League last year was clearly better than the National League. So next year, we're going to put 10 American League teams into the playoffs and only 6 National League. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. If the SEC and the Big Ten are clearly better than the other conferences, then they'll get more teams in anyway. They got more teams in last year. The Big Ten got 4 teams in last year. The SEC got 3 teams in last year. No other conference got more than 2, and only the ACC got 2. The ACC got 2, the Big 12 got 1, Notre Dame got in, and the Group of 5 team. So I think everyone would agree that the SEC and the Big Ten were the 2 best conferences in football last year. I think the Big Ten was the best conference. They got 4 teams in. I think the SEC was the second best conference. They got 3 teams in. The ACC got 2 and the Big 12 got 1. So didn't it work itself out? The idea that you can look back retroactively at a season that's already been played and go, well, that league was better last year, so next year they get more playoff teams than you do. And like I said yesterday, I'm an SEC guy, okay? I don't even hide it or deny it. Now, I enjoy all of college football. I love watching Ohio State and Michigan play every year. I probably watched more Big 12 games than any other league in college football last year, with the exception of maybe the SEC. The Big 12 was unbelievable last year, the competition, because at every game it seemed like was so close. There was no separation. It was a great league to watch. But I'm an SEC guy. But even in years past, where the SEC was clearly the most dominant league in football, there was never a time where I felt like that meant the SEC should get all the playoff spots. And look, there are people, I don't understand it, but there are people that just, I think they're doing college football a disservice by putting the SEC, or in this case, the SEC and the Big Ten, on such a pedestal that we have to give them more teams. No, we don't have to give them more teams. Whatever leagues are the best are going to get more teams in. Just like what just happened. Again, the Big Ten got 4. Most people with a brain can see that the Big Ten was the best conference in football last year, and they got 4 teams in, more than anybody else. Most people can see that the SEC was a close second, and they got 3 teams in. So it seems to me like it worked out accordingly, the way it probably should have, in terms of what leagues got how many teams in. The idea that, again, that you can look back at a season that's already been played and use that to justify additional automatic qualifiers for a following year. The entire idea of that is foreign to me. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. Again, you can look at any sport in any year and find a conference that was better than the other. In the NBA, the Western Conference maybe is better than the Eastern Conference. Okay, they still get the same number of teams into the playoffs. That's sort of the point of having the different conferences. It's a way to play down. The regular season is not a playoff per se, but in a sense it is, because you're taking a conference with 16 teams, 12 teams, 14 teams, 18 teams, whatever it is. You're taking that conference of teams, you're playing a regular season, with the purpose being that at the end of that regular season, you have narrowed that conference down to the best 4 teams, or whatever the number is. And then the other conference, or the other conferences, do the same thing. And then you take those best whatever, 2, 4 teams, whatever it is from each league, and put them in. Now, college football is different than any of those other leagues or conferences that I've mentioned, in that there's 135 teams. Whereas these pro leagues that we're talking about have around 30, 32, whatever the number. So the less number of teams you have overall, the easier it is to narrow that pool down. The the sort of magnitude of college football makes it impossible to do it in an apples to apples way with the NFL, for example, which is why I believe you need to have automatic qualifiers but you also need to have, like right now we have the playoff committee, whether that process changes down the road or not. I believe that the system we have in place right now is the best possible mix of both options. The first option being a completely NFL model where 4 teams get in from this league, 4 from this league, 4 from that league, 4 from that league, and that's it. You got your automatic qualifiers. There is no playoff committee. There is no voting. There is no ranking. It's just we've got 4 major conferences. Each major conference is going to put their best 4 teams into the playoff, and we'll play it down from there. I don't buy into that. I also don't buy into the extremely old way of doing things where there is no automatic way into the playoff. It's completely something that is subjective and voted on. Think of the BCS, for example, or even the 4-team playoff, which had no automatic qualifiers. You literally played the regular season, played conference championship games, and then a group of 12 people sat in a room and said, okay, these are the 4 teams we're going to put in the playoffs, regardless of whether they won their division, won their conference, what their record, well, whatever. We're going to handpick these 4 teams. So those are 2 extremes, right? No guaranteed automatic way to the playoff. Nothing but automatic guaranteed ways to the playoffs. I don't think either one of those things is the right way to go about college football for the reasons I just explained. You can't just do automatic qualifiers because of the discrepancy in schedule from league to league and the fact that you've got 135 teams instead of 30. I don't believe you can do just hand-picked teams from a selection committee because there's too much room for bias or the appearance of bias or whatever else. I believe a combination of those 2 things is the best way to do it. That's what we have now in the 12-team playoff. There is a way for 4 teams, 5 teams actually, to guarantee themselves a spot in the playoff. The 5 highest ranked conference champions are getting in. Period. The 5 highest ranked conference champions are getting in. That's the way it works in the 12-team playoff. The top 4 get a bye and the 5th one doesn't, but the top 5 ranked conference champs get in. The other 7 teams, handpicked. So you've got some from each sort of philosophy, right? So you got the people who think it should be just math-based. You know, this team, these are the best 4 teams in this conference they're in. Best 4 teams in this conference they're in. That takes all the subjectivity out of it. That takes the playoff committee completely away. I don't feel like that's the best way to do it because there's 135 teams. Then you've got the other extreme, which is there is no automatic way to get in. You can be Florida State and go 13-0. We're not going to put you in if we don't think you're one of the best 4. I don't think that's right either. I think what they have done in the 12-team playoff, while not perfect, is probably the best way to handle college football with a pool of 135 teams. Provide teams with a guaranteed path to the playoff through automatic qualifiers, winning your conference, and then have a selection committee vote on who they think the next 7 teams should be. Again, is it perfect? No. If you have a 12-team playoff, is the 13th team going to be mad every single year? Yes. If you have a 14-team playoff, is the 15th team going to be mad every single year? Yes. Nothing is going to change that. That's just the nature and the reality of the sport. But this blends sort of the 2 opposing ideas, which is tell me what I need to do to get to the playoffs so that if I do it, I know I'm in, versus, well, our league is better than these other leagues, so even if our teams don't win the conference, they should be in. Okay, well, the voters are going to decide that. And it worked. It worked last year. There was 0 problem with who made the playoffs last year. None. I know a lot of you cried about blowouts. There's always blowouts and there's always going to be. All the conference champions got in, and the next highest ranked 7 teams got in. I know Alabama was mad they didn't get in. They lost 3 regular season games, 2 to unranked teams. South Carolina thought they should have been in, 3 losses. Ole Miss thought they should have been in, 3 losses. I mean, and then you got, there's too many SEC people. And again, I'm an SEC guy. There are too many SEC people that are sitting around going, I think Ole Miss was better than SMU. So we should throw the whole playoff thing out the window, start over, because I think Ole Miss was better than SMU. Okay, the Falcons beat the Eagles this season. Should the Falcons have been in the Super Bowl instead of the Eagles? No. I don't think it's right that the SEC and the Big Ten are guaranteed to get 4 teams in no matter what. But the ACC and the Big 12 can only have 2. And again, I know, yes, the SEC is better than the Big 12. Yeah, the 5th or 6th best team in the SEC is probably better than the 3rd or 4th team in the ACC. I don't care. I don't care. I don't think it's right. Because you don't know what's going to happen down the road, you know. Let's just pretend for a second that we live in an alternate universe, and that next year, at the end of the year, literally everybody on the planet sits back and goes, "Wow, the ACC was the best conference in football." Now, I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, so that's not a prediction. Let's play the pretend game. Let's pretend that after next season, it is just obvious to everybody that the ACC was the best football conference. Are we prepared to change the rules again and move the SEC to only 2 teams and bump the ACC up to 4? Of course not. Of course not. Because the SEC and the Big Ten are the ones in charge. And, you know, but anyway, so there was a little confusion yesterday. There was some comments that were left that made it seem as though I was in favor of the SEC and the Big Ten getting 4 automatic qualifiers while the ACC and the Big 12 only get 2. I'm not for that. I don't have an issue with just giving the conference champions an automatic qualifier. I don't have an issue with the way it worked last year. Again, was it perfect? No, but maybe you changed the seating. But in terms of the qualifier thing, if you win your conference, you're automatically in. If you don't win your conference, you're not automatically in, but we got a room of 12 people that are going to vote. And if it's obvious that you're one of the best 12 teams, you're going to get in. So I don't know. Again, there's no perfect way to handle it, but I did want to clear that up. Have a good morning.